How is it going, guys? In today's video, we are visiting a world that might remind you of a movie that was released a few years back. A world where chaos and apocalyptic events take place. So grab yourself a backpack and some granola bars and prepare for a world full of dangers and freaks. The game we are talking about is Days Gone. Days Gone is an action-adventure game that was released exclusively for PlayStation 4 in April 26, 2019, and at a later date, May 18, 2021 to be more exact, a PC version was also released, which currently is the only two platforms where the game is playable. Days Gone was developed by Bend Studio and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. The game was inspired by World War Z, The Walking Dead, and Sons of Anarchy, which fit well in the game we got. The developers are currently working on a new IP, and I have never seen a fanbase wishing for a sequel as bad as the fanbase for Days Gone. But as far as I can tell, a Days Gone sequel might just be a dream. In Days Gone, we follow a former outlaw turned drifter called Deacon St. John as he tries to survive the event of a pandemic that has turned the population into ravenous zombies, or freaks as they are referred to multiple times. The game is set 2 years after the event, where we follow Deacon St. John as he struggles to survive, not only from freakers and marauders, but also from a deep wound after his wife's passing. A man that has given up hope on humanity and community. Two lone survivors that have a plan to move north and leave all this behind and start a clean slate. That is basically how the game starts. The story, in my opinion, was a little bit slow at the start, but picked up fast after a few missions, and I fell in love with it. But there has been a lot of talk about what's going on with Days Gone. Apparently, according to a podcast featuring John Garvin, game director of Days Gone, the game was pitched to be a trilogy that would include a deeper development of the characters, and also that there was a plan for a mission in part 2 where Deacon found freaks with weapons and armor, intending that the freaks would become more intelligent and a bigger threat, which is talked about in the game and seen in small portion throughout the story. If you want to know more, you can visit Zombie's channel, where he explains in good detail what's been going on with Days Gone. You can also check out the podcast on Spotify. I will leave a link to both of them in the description below. As stated before, Days Gone is set in Oregon, but the time frame is not something that I have been able to find out. But if you pause the game, you can see the days that has passed, and some think that the game is set at the same time as the game was originally released, which was 2019, which might mean that the epidemic started 2016 or 2017. But these are only speculations as far as I have seen. The world we travel in is a typical apocalyptic environment where nature has taken over. Roads are broken and new paths have been created to detour abandoned cars and other obstacles in our way. We have a day and night cycle, which in the early game can mean a surprising death, especially if you play on survival difficulty. You feel weak at the start, and with very few tools to actually protect yourself, most of the time you have to leave and wait until you are more prepared for some of the dangers ahead. This added a sense of danger and fear to travel during nighttime, but sometimes you don't have a choice. And when that happens, you really want to check your steps before rushing in. This game has some really nice tunes throughout the story. Sometimes when traveling longer distances during a quest, after some dialogue, they go silent and music starts to play, and it just fits so well in the game. I remember watching through Sons of Anarchy and how a lot of the songs just stuck with me throughout the years, and listening to the soundtrack of this game took me back to a place that I enjoyed very much. As you travel through different paths and thick forests, you will hear freakers screaming or just making weird sounds that sends a shiver down your neck, and Deacon continuously talking to himself.
Bunch of murderers and thieves, and I can't let any of them escape. How many drifters you ambushed down there, huh? Oh, I think that's it. Roads will be a little safer now. I mean, not much, but a little.
But it also brings some reality to the game, where most people probably would talk to themselves when they're alone for the most part. So for this game, I switched between using a keyboard and controller. Both works well, but I played most of the time on the keyboard since I got used to it so fast and I didn't feel the need to play with a controller. Movement is fluid and works well, both moving on foot or with your bike. The bike movement was so satisfying to use, which is probably something logical when playing a game where bikes are involved, But we have seen games where simple game mechanics just simply don't work when they should. But one thing that bothered me so much is when Deacon rolls instead of climbing. I've been caught so many times when trying to make him climb and instead he rolls into a wall when freakers are at your heels. I understand that it's probably due to me rushing too fast and clicking either too late or too soon, but does it have to be that sensitive? Anyways, after a few hours of gameplay, it got better, so it was definitely a skill problem, but I still feel that it was a little too sensitive. We do have a leveling system that works like most other leveling systems. We have 3 categories: melee combat that focus on melee combat, which can vary from regenerate stamina for every melee kill to repairing melee weapons with scrap. Survival, which helps with increasing your inventory space or reduce cooldown on stamina recovery. And finally, we have ranged combat, which can increase accuracy or headshots will recover some health and much more. The game offers a range of different skills that you can gain depending on your playstyle, but I focused a lot on stamina recovery since you will be doing a lot of running and you do not want to get caught because you run out of stamina. We also have challenges that you can do which will earn you different patches that will become active in your single player playthrough, so make sure to play the challenges before playing the main story. Dealing with enemies depends highly on the amount and what kind you are facing. The normal straggler freaks are fairly easy to take care of with the use of both melee and ranged combat. Headshots is an instant kill, while melee takes a few more hits. As long as you run and roll to avoid enemy attacking you from your rear, you should do fine. And it's also a good way to conserve your ammo. Then we have marauders, which use both melee, ranged weapons and traps. They can be a little trickier to handle. Either you can try to use stealth or you can go Rambo, using your ranged weapons and different throwables to take them out. You will find marauders on the road in fewer numbers, setting up ambushes with snipers to shoot you off your bike. They can be handled with ease since there is a small amount of them and most of them use melee weapons. It is ambush camps that can be more difficult since they have a substantial amount of people guarding it, but it's also worth the risk since every marauder camp has a bunker that you have to locate after you killed everyone at the camp, which will give you a crafting recipe. And now we get to the fun stuff. As we travel through the world, we will at some point come across a horde of freaks, and they are huge. It is highly recommended to not engage with these until you are equipped with better weapons and a crap load of explosives. You have to plan ahead before engaging these hordes, set up mines, traps, use the environment to pack them together, and use either explosives or oil barrels that are usually in the area where hordes hibernate during the day. During the night, they move around between different parts in a certain area, so stumbling upon them is highly possible if you travel during the night, but as long as you stay on your bike, you should be fine. But if on foot, pray to God that you have upgraded your stamina so that you can run for a long time. During combat, you can also use something called focus, which can be a lifesaver in a tight situation. But at the start, it is very limited, but you can upgrade this to last longer. And there's also stamina, health, and focus pills that you can craft at some point, which is very helpful in a horde situation. Basically, attack the horde with bombs to kill as many as you can, leg it, making sure to run through your prepared traps and clump them together using a source of sound like an attractor, and then grenade them, moving and shooting to keep your distance. Combat in this game is so much fun, especially when it comes to hordes, since you need to have some kind of plan, and it's just so satisfying to clump them together and see them burn, explode, or massacre them with a machine gun. So there are a few friendly camps scattered around in the world that you will visit, do quests for, fill up on ammo, fix your bike, or buy weapons. As you do missions for the camp, you gain trust level, which opens up for better weapons, bike parts, or consumables. Every camp has a different trade. Some focus on guns while others focus more on bike parts. This means that if you are at a camp that mainly focuses on guns, you will only be able to fill your bike with gas or fix it up and vice versa. You can also hunt animals in Days Gone, which you later can sell to a camp for credits score, which you can buy weapons and parts with. You can also collect bounties, which basically are ears that you cut off freakers that you deliver at the camp bounty supplier for credits. The quest for camps was fun and all, but I do wish that there were more environmental changes that you could do for the camp, fixing electricity, fixing a water pump, you know, something that changed the camp in a way. I felt like there was some opportunities here that was missing, but that is also wishful thinking. But doing camp quests was still enjoyable. You can also find survivors that you can save and send to camps for credits and or trust. There will be random events where they can be stuck in a car or captured by marauders. This was a nice touch, but for some reason the developers couldn't bother making more than a few faces for the survivors. Many times you will find that they had the same face but with beard or no beard, and they sound the same, which I felt was a little disappointing. Also, that if you find two of them and you save them both, they will for some reason appear again, but this time they are not captured and don't need saving, which was a little immersion breaking, especially since the question mark that pop up on your minimap still indicates something of interest, which made me travel to the location only to find out that I had already saved these people. A waste of time in my opinion, which led me to totally skip question marks altogether if it didn't show up on my path. In Days Gone, the bike plays a big role as it is your only way to travel in the game. And it is just so satisfying riding your bike. You will use gas, so make sure to check your fuel every once in a while so you don't run out. There are gas cans scattered in the world that you will find. Your bike can also break down, in which case you need to find parts to repair it. These are obtainable under hoods of abandoned cars or scattered in the open. As you progress, you will be able to upgrade your bike and change its visual, and let me tell you, some of the visuals are beautiful. You can feel the bike changing when you upgrade it, moving smoother and faster. We have the standard easy and normal difficulties. Hard and survival is when things get more difficult. Even though hard difficulty will make enemies stronger, the hardest part is that in survival, your HUD is totally gone. You can't see the map, your health, your stamina, except for a short while when you use focus, which makes the game so much harder, since you can't see where enemies are or how much stamina or health you have left. But taking the cake is definitely that they turn off fast travel on survival 1 and 2, so you will have to travel all the way there and back again. I finished Days Gone on survival 1, and playing like this was more satisfying than I would ever have thought. It greatly helped with immersion, and when you got to one of those long rides, you always stopped somewhere to gather some scrap or other materials. The National Emergency Response Organization, or NERO for short, is an agency of the United States government that is supposed to take care of disasters and other emergency situations, but unfortunately they didn't manage to control or contain the freaker virus. As the world went to hell, the few NERO personnel that remained continued to research the freakers and their behaviors, but where their main base is located is unknown. But NERO Checkpoints is something you will find as you travel, and in these there are usually a NERO injector, which can be used to increase either your stamina, health, or focus. Therefore, it is highly recommended to gather as many of these as possible, but at some of these checkpoints you have to start a generator, and before doing that, make sure that you get rid of all the speakers, otherwise you will bring down all freakers to your location. When you've dealt with the speakers, fix the generator and grab the injector. You can also sleep in this location, but if there are enemies nearby, you have to deal with them first. You will also find NERO recordings that will give you a picture of what happened at this base. I had so much fun playing this game, both at the start and in New Game Plus. The story was satisfying, combat worked like a charm, riding your bike was amazing, a good amount of weapons and upgrades, killing hordes is awesome. The game did have some flaws, like survivors looking and sounding the same, and points of interest on the map showing up even though you've already been there. But other than that, it is a great game, and I am so glad that I played through it. Days Gone is a zombie game, but it is also one of a kind, where the mix-up of World War Z and Sons of Anarchy fits perfectly. The game did release in a poor state, with bugs, which probably is the reason for the game being overlooked, but I didn't see any of these during my playthrough. I still feel that releasing games with bugs that makes a game not playable is something that needs to be brought out in the open, but I also think that it is as much of an importance to bring up how a company handled this when it comes to bugs, people's reaction, and how they act when their game isn't fully functional, if they have a disrespectful tone or if they take responsibility for their actions. The final verdict for Days Gone is a solid 9 out of 10. It is an amazing game and a great experience, and probably the only biker zombie game out there. I really hope that in a few years they will continue on this supposed to be trilogy and give us the other parts. They have a solid ground for the game, and if they would pick it up again, I think they have the potential to do wonders. So the question begs, is it worth your time and money? Hell yeah. If you have not played it, you definitely should. I just gotta say that I have not had this much fun in a game since The Last of Us, and I can say that Days Gone definitely deserves a spot next to that brilliant game without any doubt. That was it for this review, guys, and I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you do have some time over, why not check out my other videos and see if there's something you would enjoy. Thank you for watching, and remember, life is too short to play bad games. Let me help you find the best. See you guys.